we're going to discuss how to find the domain of functions given an equation and also to see where functions are increasing and decreasing. So if you are looking for the domain and you're given an equation, there's two things you want to look for. One is if you have a square root or a root that has an even index, and the other is if you have a fraction or rational expression where there's variables on the denominator. If you have a square root or something with an even index, you cannot have a negative under the radical sign because that would be an unreal solution or a complex solution. So whatever is underneath it has to be greater than or equal to 0. So right here, what we would do is just set whatever is underneath, so x plus 4, and set it greater than or equal to 0 and solve that inequality. So if you subtract 4 from both sides, we would have x is greater than or equal to -4. So if I look at that in a number line at -4, I would have a closed circle and it has to be greater than. So this is what it would look like on a number line. So if you have to write it using interval notation, this would be starting at -4, and it can equal -4 because it can be a 0 underneath, and then going all the way to infinity. Because any number greater than that will give this a positive value underneath. Now, over here, if you have a rational expression, you cannot have 0 on the bottom of a fraction. So you first want to factor, which we already did here, and then you set whatever you have on the bottom equal to 0 and say that it cannot equal this. So it can't equal, x plus 6 cannot equal 0, and x minus 1 cannot equal 0. So when we solve this, the two values that x cannot equal are -6 by subtracting this and +1 by adding the 1 to both sides. So x can equal any other number in the world except these two, because these two values give you an undefined expression because you can't have 0 on the bottom. So if we're looking at a number line for this, at -6 and 1, there would be an open circle, but every other value is allowed. So if we had to write this in interval notation, we would want to write each place that we see it. So this first part would be from -infinity to -6 with parentheses, because that means it goes up to this value but doesn't include it. In union with, this inner piece would be -6 to 1, and then in union with, this right piece would be from 1 to infinity. And that would be the domain and interval notation for this. Now here you can see we have multiple things happening. We have both. So if you have two things happening, you still have to follow the rules for the domain, and then you want to see where these number lines overlap. So if I look at this and I kind of put this number line over here, then I would have right here, this would be, we have -4, I'll draw that again. So this was -4 up to infinity. So we are kind of saying this is happening and this is happening because both of these things now are in the same expression, and we want to see where these overlap. So they only overlap from here to the right. So we only have to express values that are greater than or equal to -4 and follow what we have up here, which means they can't equal -1. So if we want the domain for this, we can find them each separately, see where they overlap, and then write the interval for that overlapping piece. So this would be, it starts at -4. So this would be from -4, and then it goes all the way up, and then again, remember, it can't be 1. So it'd be -4 to 1 in union with, on this piece would be 1 to infinity. And this whole thing, try to write it so you can see it. There you go. This right here would be the answer for the domain for this. Now, if we're looking at a graph and we want to see where things are increasing and decreasing, we're going to look at the x values. And for increasing, find the x values with a positive slope, so going up from left to right. So I highlighted here the ones that have a positive slope would be this piece in blue, because it's positive from left to right, and this piece in blue because it's going up from left to right. These are the intervals where it's increasing, and you always want to do it as your x values. So this piece on my x values is from -infinity all the way up to this x value where it starts to decrease, and this x value is 0. And then in union with, again, from here to here, x values. So this x value we said is 2, all the way up to infinity. And then decreasing is, sorry, increasing is always parentheses. And then Decreasing is where it's a negative slope or going down. So this is the pink right here. So from this x value to this x value, it is decreasing. So that would be from 0 to 2 is where it is decreasing. So you want to look at the local maxes and mins to see where it changes, and that will give you the x values, and then you can break the intervals where it's going up or a positive slope is where it's increasing, and then the x values where it's going down is decreasing. And again, infinity and negative infinity should always be parentheses, so I made that mistake there and I changed it.